Thank you, Madam Speaker. And does this member really think that the CRTC is the right entity to regulate the internet? I mean, the CRTC has spent more than 14 months trying to renew the CBC license. They spent over a year trying to implement a 3-digit suicide prevention hotline. They have a chair who has private meetings. She goes out for beers with one of the largest businesses that they regulate, Bell Canada, and yet they want the CRTC with some unknown policy director to do this. Does this member really think the CRTC is going to be able to regulate the internet?
Honourable member for Fleetwood Port Kells, 15 seconds.
Well, yes, I do. I think the CRTC has demonstrated over time the fact that it keeps in touch. It stays in sync with community standards. It uses a very, very light touch. If you really look at some of their pronouncements over time, in fact,
And we have to resume debate. The honourable member for Kildonan and St. Paul.
Here, here.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The internet. What a credible invention, Madam Speaker. All the information in the world in the palm of our hands. And just as the creation of the printing press in the 1400s changed the course of history forever by allowing information to be disseminated to the masses rather than just to the elites of society, and it brought literacy to millions of people, so too has the internet revolutionized how we exchange ideas, amplify our voices, and it's brought freedom of knowledge and expression to billions of people. But before the printing press, censorship of dangerous ideas by the elites was easy. All you had to do was round up the heretics with fringe, unacceptable views and hang them high in town square and burn their handwritten notebooks. But with the printing press, dangerous ideas were shared far and wide, leading to the Protestant Reformation, the Scientific Revolution, the French Revolution, the Age of Enlightenment, just to name a few. And likewise, the internet and social media has helped spark political revolutions and political movements. It's empowered brave resistance to foreign dictators, like our Ukrainian friends against Vladimir Putin in their courageous fight. That really, social media has helped empower that and exchange information at a rapid pace. So we really do live in extraordinary times, Madam Speaker, and this is especially true for our online Canadian content creators. Influencers is now a career choice, and Canadian musicians, painters, bakers, commentators, and do-it-yourselfers can access billions of people and share their ideas and creations with the click of a button. All you need is an internet connection and a smartphone. Well, you do need one more thing, actually. You need a government that believes in your freedom to do so. And unfortunately, Canadians are experiencing a government who is trying desperately to control the internet. From the very wild and extreme Online Harms Bill to Bill C-18, the Online News Act, and now Bill C-11, the Online Streaming Act, which we are debating today, Canada's Liberal government is really butting into every aspect of our online world and proclaiming it's here to help. And it will show those big, scary boss streaming services like Netflix and Spotify who the boss is and save us all from scary, dangerous ideas on the internet. But in reality, these three internet bills all have the same aim: to regulate what you see when you open your cell phone apps, Madam Speaker. And now Canadians may remember how Bill C-10 exploded in controversy last year but died on the order paper. And it's back now in C-11. And while the Liberals claim they have fixed the concerns from C-10, really C-11 is just a wolf in sheep's clothing. The issue with C-11 was its control of user-generated content, which is, the posts and the videos that we share and upload on social media. The Liberals say that that issue was removed in C-11, but experts don't agree. Notable communications law professor Michael Geist has pointed out that the CRTC has the power with C-11 to subject user-generated content to regulation should it so choose. And if folks at home, if you're asking what CRTC is, it's the Canada Radio, Television and Telecommunications Commission that has heavily controlled what we see on TV and what we hear on the radio over the past 50 years. Bill C-11 essentially expands the CRTC powers to streaming giants like Netflix and Spotify, but also to podcasts, audiobooks, and news channels that we consume online. And it won't just control Canadian-produced versions of those things, but anything from anywhere in the world that Canadians want to consume online in Canada as well. And more than that, C11 in fact provides the Liberal cabinet the power to tell the CRTC how to regulate streaming platforms, how to define what Canadian content is, and the general policy direction of these internet controls. And it's important to note that Cabinet does not have this power currently over TV and radio. This will be a new power. Under the existing law, the CRTC is not directed by Cabinet. It is independent so that it can be free from political interference, which is very important, Madam Speaker. But this will no longer be the case under C11. Cabinet will have the power over what we see on the internet, which represents an unprecedented power, expansion of government power. And really, I think the bottom line, Madam Speaker, is that Canadian creators have more freedom now, before this bill comes in, ever before that they did with TV and radio. You can become a YouTube star. It's far more accessible than ever trying to break into network television. So why would the Liberals want to impose the same CRTC regulations that they have on TV and radio onto our online platforms? It really doesn't make sense if we're talking about boosting our Canadian content creators. And we know that over 90% of those watching our Canadian content are actually from outside of Canada. And the number of sort of influencers online in Canada earning $100,000 a year or more is rapidly increasing every single year. So I really do believe the last thing that our online content creators need is the Liberal government sticking their fingers into the regulation controls and messing around with the algorithms that have facilitated the content of our homegrown creators being able to share their content with the world. And YouTube, in fact, itself has alerted the online community and issued strong warnings to this Liberal government about the negative impacts of Bill C11, that it risks downgrading Canadian content in other countries, because if we artificially bump up Canadian content here, and for whatever reason that Canadian content isn't catching the interest of Canadians, the way the algorithm works, it'll actually downgrade that content abroad in competing markets like the United States, for example, which a lot of influencers in Canada depend on. So I do feel, though, that C11 isn't the only thing we need to be worried about. It's worrisome, but there are two other bills as well. There's C18, which has some issues. It's the Online News Act, which has been criticized as interfering in the independence of our news media because it controls how we share news articles on platforms like Facebook by forcing these platforms to pay news agencies every time we share a news article. Lots of people share news on their Facebook platforms, which it's odd that they would need this bill because it's great for news agencies. When you share their content, it takes you right to their website. It's free advertising. And Australia tried to do this. They tried to do the same thing as C18. And what happened? Well, Facebook played hardball and banned all sharing of news articles on Facebook until they were able to negotiate something with the Australian government. So there is serious issues here, and Facebook has raised, look, we're not opposed to doing the same thing in Canada. They raised that in committee. So really, it's just more control from government, C18, but that's not even half as bad as the online harms bill, Madam Speaker. This is a very scary internet control bill. It, in the last Parliament, it was known as Bill C-36, and it died on the order paper when that unnecessary $600 million election was called, but the Liberals are trying to bring it back again. And now, it is important to say that I welcome a conversation of how we can better fight terrorism that is organizing online, and we can better enforce existing laws where things are considered fraud or libel or incite violence, and in particular child pornography or the sharing of intimate images online without consent. Those are all very important conversations and legitimate issues that need to be addressed. However, the Online Harms Bill would create a government regulator of speech on the internet that would decide what is harmful and must be removed. It is very subjective, depending on really who's behind the curtain dictating what is harmful. So really this bill, and I took a direct quote from Andrew Coyne in the Globe and Mail, who said the bill is direct state regulation of online content. Pretty significant. So, and then Twitter even went on to say, this is really concerning, that people around the world have been blocked from accessing Twitter and other services in a similar manner as the one proposed by Canada by multiple authoritarian governments like China, North Korea, and Iran, for example, under the false guise of online safety, impeding people's right to access information. Twitter is literally comparing this online harms bill to China, North Korea, and Iran, Madam Speaker. It's pretty shocking. And I really do feel that with the Liberals throwing around terms like misinformation and disinformation whenever they don't like something that we say, and free speech we know is constantly under attack, and really anything you say these days can offend someone, I am concerned about what bills like C-11 and the online harms bill will do to our freedom of expression online. And with my remaining minute, Madam Speaker, I'll just conclude that, although society has evolved, before the creation of the printing press and the establishment, the press establishment or the establishment would, essentially murder heretics with unacceptable views, and they would burn books later on. We're not immune to authoritarian control of our freedom of expression, and we would also do well to remember that rights and freedoms are not always eliminated in one fell swoop. Often governing authorities will just pick at them bite by bite under the auspices of it's for your own good, we know better than you, we'll keep you safe. We see this happen in China, it's happening in Hong Kong. And really, I'll conclude by saying that considering when asked which country in the entire world that he most admires, our Liberal Prime Minister said China's basic dictatorship and its ability to get things done, we should listen when the Prime Minister tells us who he really is. And with these 3 internet control and censorship bills, Madam Speaker, I do believe he's made his intentions quite clear, and we should all be very, very concerned.